UFC Fight Night Santos vs Ankalaev was probably the best card of the year so far, in my opinion. And I want to be the UFC matchmaker one day, so I'll be telling you all my suggestions for every single fight in this card on what I think should be made. And let's start off with the first fight of the night, Tafon vs Azamat Murakanov. I hope I pronounced that properly. So Tafon looked the best he's ever looked, in my opinion, in his career. He was landing shots, going to the body, fighting smart. And then, out of nowhere, Azamat just landed a flying knee, a big fuck-off knee out of nowhere. And, yeah, I think it'd be a shame for the UFC to cut Tafon after this fight. And I don't know if that's what they're planning, but if I was the UFC, I would think about making a fight with him and Alexei Kamor, both in similar situations. And, yeah, I think it would just make all the sense in the world. Instead of cutting them, let them fight each other. And if you want to cut the loser, then, yeah, that makes sense. But don't cut them both. You know, the light heavyweight division is pretty small. There's only about 40 fighters on the roster that, like, can't be cutting everybody. But, yeah, do Alexei Kamor vs Tafon Ninchikwi next. And for the winner, Azamat, I think he should fight Nikolai. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, but Nikolai, the Romanian guy who beat Kennedy on the Colby Covington vs Jorge Masvidal card. I think that fight would make sense next. He's on a bit of a run, and Azamat's 32 years old. Tapology had him as 35 last week, but I guess he's gone back in time a little bit. He's younger now, so you don't have to rush him up too quickly. The light heavyweight's got a 43-year-old champ at the moment. But yeah, I think that would be a good step up for both men. The next fight of the night was Chris Monteiro versus Guido Cannetti. Guido Cannetti came off with the win there. And this one's a bit hard to matchmake because they're both the lowest tier of Bantamweight, one of the most stacked divisions. And looking at it, I think Chris Monteiro is going to get cut. But assuming he's not, I think you book a fight with him and Jesse Strader next. 5-3 Jesse Strader, 0-2 in the UFC. Just makes sense, right? Record-wise, like, they're both not got the best records, and you need to get these people booked. You know, I remember Mike Jackson couldn't get fights booked because of the commission not allowing him to fight anyone. Hence why he's fighting Dean Barry. But anyway, I'm going on random points right now. But yeah, I'd like to see him versus Jesse Strader, I guess. And for Guido Cannetti, I guess a fight with JP Buys makes sense if he's going to stay at bantamweight. But I really don't know what he's doing either. He's got that whole situation with Roman Dolidze and his ex-wife, so maybe he's dealing with that. But yeah, if he wants to come back to fighting instead of beefing with middleweights, then I guess that fight would make some sense to make. The next fight we have was Dolce Lam in Bugla. I really definitely butchered that. Versus Cody Brundage, and Cody Brundage got the win. So we'll start with the loser. Dolce was doing really good until he got gashed out from trying to knock Brundage's head off, and then got guillotined. So for Dolce, I'd like to see him against Dusko Todorovic, the Serbian fella. Really sorry for the pronunciations of these names. This is my first time actually saying these names out loud. But yeah, for that fight, I'd like to see that fight next. Dusko coming off that win against Patolo. So yeah, that'd be a nice fight for him. I reckon that fight could bang. And then for the winner, Cody Brundage, I'd like to see him versus another man who beat Dolce and Dolce's current teammate actually, Marc-Andre Barriol. So I think that fight could make sense next. The next fight was in the UFC women's flyweight division. We had Sabina Mazo versus Miranda Maverick, and Miranda Maverick got the win there. Sabina Mazo versus Yeon Kim would probably make sense next, in my opinion. They're both on a bit of a skid. Yeon Kim won her last fight, but you know, she didn't get the decision there. But yeah, that fight makes sense. And for Miranda Maverick versus Marana Moroz, who won her fight last week, the Ukrainian. So I think that fight would make sense. The next fight of the night was in the UFC featherweight division, Damon Jackson versus Kamala Kirk. And Damon Jackson got the win, so we'll start with Kamala Kirk. I think he should actually fight the man Damon Jackson was originally meant to face, Josh Calabo. Sorry if I butchered that name, but yeah, I think that fight would make sense next, because you can't really. Well, you could rebook that fight with Damon Jackson and him, but I feel like Damon Jackson should get a bit of a step up. He's on a 2-fight win streak. But yeah, I think that fight makes sense next for Kamala Kirk. And then for Damon Jackson, I'd like to see him versus Nate the Train Landwehr. If his fight against David Onama got cancelled, I believe. I don't know if they're going to rebook that, but if they're not rebooking that, I'd like to see him versus Nate Landwehr. That fight would be a banger. Or you could even book him against Julian Erosa, who just beat Damon Jackson's teammate, Steven Peterson, in a banger of a fight. So yeah, you got options there. But yeah, I think Damon Jackson versus either of them men would make sense. Or even the winner of Darren Elkins versus Tristan Connolly could make some sense. Next fight was in the UFC Bantamweight division. We had Javid Bajarat versus Trevin Jones, and Javid got the win. So for the loser, Trevin Jones, I'd like to see him versus Lewis Smolka next. I think that fight would make sense, both coming off losses. Well, in Trevin Jones' case, his losses. Smolka's coming off a loss. But yeah, I think that fight makes sense. I hope they don't cut Trevin Jones. I think it'd be a very silly thing to do, but I guess he's technically not got as many wins because of that whole Tamir Valiev thing with the weed suspension and the no contest. But I hope they keep him because he's an entertaining fighter and he's got some KO power at bantamweight. And for Javid, I'd like to see Javid against Mario Batista, who Trevin Jones beat, but I think that fight could be pretty fun. Our next fight is in the UFC Women's Flyweight division. We had Julian Robertson versus JJ Aldridge, and JJ Aldridge got the win. So for this fight, I'd like to see Julian Robertson versus... It's really hard with this flyweight division. It's one of the least stacked divisions out of all the divisions. One of the lower tier skill levels. It doesn't really excite me as much. So we'll put her against Hannah Goldie. Why not? It's not really a big deal to me. And for the winner, JJ Aldrich, she should fight the winner of Molly McCann versus Luina Carolina this weekend at the UFC London card. The next fight we have is in the UFC welterweight division. We have Matthew, the Jedi Semmelsberger versus AJ the Ghost Fletcher. And Matthew Semmelsberger came off with the win. And for AJ Fletcher, the loser, I'd like to see him versus Jason Witt next. Another man who lost to Matthew Semmelsberger, although be it in 15-second KO, in a 15-second KO. So yeah, you can make that fight for them. And for Matthew Semmelsberger, now this is where it gets fun. Now I know Jeremiah Wells was booked against Tim Means, and Tim Means wants to return in April, so I'm not sure if they're going to rebook that fight. But if they don't rebook that fight, Matthew Semmelsberger versus either of them men could be a banger. Or even against Nico Price or an Alex Morono. Those fights would make a lot of sense. So yeah, but yeah, Matthew Semmelsberger is a fun fighter. You could put him against a Broom and he would have an exciting fight. So it doesn't really matter who you book him against. Maybe keep him away from Ramazan Ameev. That guy's allergic to fun fights, it seems. But maybe even Matthew Semmelsberger would get a fun fight out of him. The next fight we have is in the UFC middleweight division, and we had a fight between Alex Poatan Pereira and Bruno Silva, which was a banger of a fight, might I add. But we'll start off with the loser, Bruno Silva. I think he should fight Joaquin Buckley, which, in my opinion, would be a beast of a fight. I think Bruno Silva would win that by KO, but it would be fun however long it lasts. But for Alex Pereira, this one depends on how the UFC would want to match him up. I feel like a slow build, not a really slow build, but a slightly slow build, would do him some good, because he's shown a lot of improvements against this fight in Bruno Silva in regards to his takedown defense and his ability to just get up. He looked a lot better here than he did against Michailidis. So it's two ways you could do this. You could either put him against Brad Tavares and get him right in the rankings, or you could do him against either Ian Heinisch or the winner of GM Prix, Gerard Meerschaert, against Jotko in April, or even Eric Anders, somebody like that, just to not completely throw him to the wolves, but to get his grappling defense up. But middleweight's not really the most grappling heavy division, but yeah, any of those fights could bang. But if the UFC want to rush him, then yeah, you could definitely do him against Brad Tavares. The next fight we had was in the UFC lightweight division, and it was between Drew Dober and Terrence McKinney, and that fight was fucking insane. Like, it was back and forth as a fight can be. I thought Dober was going to be out. I predicted him by TKO as well, and I was shitting myself when I seen him get knocked down straight away. I was thinking McKinney was the Ngannou of lightweight, but anyway, moving on. Dober ended up coming out with the win. But for Terrence McKinney, I'd like to see him against either a Nasrat Hasparast, somebody who also lost to Drew Dober in the first round, or even a Leonardo Santos fight could make some sense. But yeah, it's pretty easy to match up Terrence McKinney coming off that. His stock didn't go down at all, and he's a fairly newcomer, so there's a lot of fresh matchups for him in that division. And for Drew Dober, this one's pretty obvious. He called out Bobby Green, and it seemed like Bobby Green verbally agreed to it on Instagram, so I think that fight would make sense. That fight would be an absolute bang. So the next fight we have was in the UFC light heavyweight division. It was between Carl Robertson and Khalil Roundtree, and Khalil Roundtree really came in with violent intentions. Got the soccer kick to the body and just beat the shit out of Robertson. And for Robertson, I'm not sure if the UFC is going to keep him on. He had all them issues with weight, but now he's at light heavyweight. Surely they would want to, get at least another matchup out of him before they do. And if they do get another matchup, I'd like to see him versus Shamil Gamazatov. I think that fight would make some sense. Shamil coming off his first loss against Michel Olek. You know who I'm talking about, the Polish bloke. But yeah, I think that fight would make sense. And for Khalil Roundtree, I'd like to see him versus either a William Knight, which would be an explosive fight, or one of my dream fights in the division, him versus Dustin Jacoby. So yeah, those fights would be bangers. William Knight versus Roundtree would be complete explosion. Just looking at their physiques, and Dustin Jacoby would just be a nice kickboxing match. Former Glory kickboxer, just Dustin Jacoby, like Carl Robertson. Although Carl Roberson's kickboxing career is a little overrated, he was only 0-4. Dustin Jacoby was also 50-50, but he had a lot more success. Actually beat Carl Roberson in kickboxing. But yeah, I think that would make sense next. Didn't mean to completely shit on Carl Roberson's kickboxing. The next fight we had was in the UFC featherweight division, and it was Alex Caceres versus Siddique Youssef. And in that fight, Siddique Youssef got the win, but Alex Caceres put up a good fight. And for Caceres, I think I would like to see him versus Ryan Hall, or even an Andre Feely. Either of those fights could be good fights, or a Zabira Tukhugov could also be good. And for Siddique Youssef, that he could fight maybe Edson Barboza coming off that loss to Bryce Mitchell. I know he called out Bryce Mitchell, but he's not going to get that. Or he could fight Shane Burgos. Or even the winner of Dan Ego versus Ivalev. The next fight we had was in the UFC Bantamweight division, and well, for me, I was a big Marlon Moraes fan. I was really rooting for him here, but I picked Song Yudong because you can tell when a chin's gone a little bit, and well, Song Yudong got the KO, and for Marlon Moraes, if he's going to continue fighting, he took the gloves off, so that could indicate that he's retiring, but maybe it was just hot and he wanted to take his gloves off. But if he's coming back, I'd like to see him against Cody Garbrandt. Makes the most sense. Both need a win. Winner stays, loser goes home. And I don't know if the logistics of that happening, because they're both managed by Ali Abdelaziz, but that shouldn't really get in the way. of that. So I think they were meant to fight in October 2020, but it ended up being Sandhagen versus Moraes instead. So hopefully that means that that fight can be made. If so, yeah, I'd like to see that next. And for Song Yadong, I want an absolute war for his next fight. I want him versus Pedro Munoz. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about Pedro going down to flyweight, but I'm not too sure what's going on with that. He said it, and then he went to fight Cruz, his next fight. But if he's going to stay at bantamweight, him versus Song Yadong, I need to see that fight. Both got granite chins. Yadong's got some KO power. Pedro's got them leg kicks. It'd just be an absolute war. You could make that a 5-rounder if you wanted to. I'd watch it. It'd be better than some of the main events we're getting. We're getting Holly Holm in a main event in May. So, yeah, I'd really like a Yadong versus Pedro fight. That'd be a banger. The next fight was in the UFC light heavyweight division, and you had Magomed Ankalaev versus Thiago Santos. This was the main event, and this was probably the one bad fight of the card, but even there was some good moments. The 4th round, I believe, was sort of alright for a bit, but still, yeah, not exciting by any means. But for Thiago Santos, it's going to be interesting what the UFC do with him next. I would imagine they would do him versus Dominic Reyes, or even maybe the winner of Nikita Krylov versus Paul Craig. But yeah, it's either one of them, but I'm not really too interested in Thiago Santos fights anymore since he tore his leg. But even the Glover fight was pretty fun. But yeah, I don't know. The UFC might just cut him because he's not putting on the exciting fights like he used to do, which I don't agree with. But yeah, I think that might be what happens to Thiago Santos. But yeah, him versus Reyes or winner of Nikita Krylov versus Paul Craig would make sense. And for the winner of the main event, Magomed Ankalaev, the fight that makes the most sense would be a fight with Anthony Smith. I know he called for a title shot, but he's definitely not going to get a title shot. Yeah, especially not after that performance. Even if he KO'd Santos, there's still Rakic versus Blachowicz in May. So yeah, Anthony Smith versus Ankalaev makes the most sense. And then the winner can get a title shot after the winner of Rakic versus Jan, I guess. So yeah, there's the fight that I think should be made next after UFC Fight Night Ankalaev versus Santos. This is my first time making a video like this, so sorry if the quality of the mic's a bit shit. And yeah, I'm definitely going to make more of these videos, but yeah, don't worry, this isn't the final product. I'm definitely going to improve my video quality and everything after this. But yeah, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe and comment what you want to see me do more of. I can do fight predictions more. If you want to see more of this fight booking, let me know. But yeah, thank you. I hope everyone has a great day. Peace.